Alan, moving forward too,
Mm-hmm.
I worry about how hard it's going to be to predict now that it's like, I mean, we've lived in, a very brief era where largely it's algorithms that have selected what we're being exposed to in terms of entertainment.
Yeah.
But what's happening is like, it's also going to get to the point where, and I mean, I'll see the occasional story. It's not just the ChatGPT thing you saw me.
Yeah.
You'll see some people that are just like dicking around with the idea of like, hey man, I, had the AI cook me up a story and cook me up the art and I made this book out of it and I'm already starting to sell it. And it's like, man, that's going to be really weird, not just when the computer's choosing what you should watch, but also changing and, making what you should watch. That's going to be strange. That's going to be strange. It's going to be very strange as to whether or not we like it, because the computers had a large hand in what we've consumed for a long time.
Yeah.
And it'll be really different. You'll see cultural blowback from when we get to the point where you really can just fake people to the and like, there's a lot of questions from a political standpoint, obviously, but just from the standpoint that you can have an AI cook up for you a Bruce Springsteen concert in any context. It's recorded.
Yeah.
But there'll be a return and a desire to get back to the idea. It's like, no, man, I want to see the shit live because I know it really happened.
Yeah, I think there's a small pushback on a lot of that right now. It's not big because obviously the AI stuff's new, but I mean, I was telling Banshee about this the other day. There's a bar in town that has a giant, like, had someone do a giant, like, one of those window art things where they like kind of can advertise on their window space, right? And like every Wednesday is no phone party. Like, it's a no phone party, so no devices, no computers, no nothing. You just show up. You can buy drinks, you can buy coffee, whatever. Hang out.
There'll be music playing
on vinyl, right? Like they even said vinyl records available to to play, stuff like that. But it's literally like no devices allowed, right? So I think there's that itch to do that. And I talked about that like years ago when I was talking about like there needs to be like a public house, like a pub, right? That you can go to. And that's the case where you go in and like you sit at long tables with the people you came with, but also with people that you don't know, right? And now you're having conversation, like open conversation in an actual public house, which is what, pubs originally were. And human discourse, like in person. So I don't know, man, like I think there's a small push for that. And I think what's driving that is a lot of people that are running places that are like our age now, right? They're like I just hit 40, right? This past week. And, people our age are remembering those times before the internet, right? Remembering those times before the smartphones, and they're kind of like they're getting nostalgic for that feeling. And I think there will always be a place for that. I hear more people talking about wanting to actually go to the movies, physically go sit in a theater, stuff like that. I think that you can't replace that feeling, but AI will probably do a pretty good job of supplementing at some point, supplementing something, but not everything.
It's something that, like, that's the thing about ChatGPT. I play around with it in the sense that, I keep trying to see if I can break it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it can't not be helpful to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I saw somebody, here's a good example.
So I'll let you know. I already hit record, by the way.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah, but I'm not. But we've been just bullshitting, so that's fine.
No, fair enough.
It's fine. I just want to set up ChatGPT for anybody who doesn't know what it is. It's literally an AI that has been set up by openAI, I think is the company, right?
think so.
And you can go in and ask it questions. You can ask for information about things, and it will, instead of just throwing, like you told me, like instead of just throwing you a list of links, it's going to actually write out sometimes a paragraph or 2 or 3 about what you asked about. And you can actually have a conversation. You can have follow-up questions. You can do stuff like that. It's really, really interesting. I actually encourage people to go check it out. It's funny you said you've been trying to break it. I've been trying to break it too. So just in my free time.
Well, I mean, really more like testing the limits of it. Like so I didn't do this, but this is an example of this kind of stuff I'm talking about it was cool to watch this person going through these responses of what you're getting back. It's like, it was asking whether or not ChatGPT creates serotonin. And initially ChatGPT is like, no, I'm an AI construct. I can't do that. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. And goes through, ever more complex and thorough and concise descriptions of, no, this is what serotonin is, and this is why organisms create it, as, just kind of a natural...
Factual,
not natural internal, dopamine to kind of close, kind of shut you down and make you go to sleep. I can't do that. Even though you try to reverse and kind of, throw logic back onto it, like saying it's like, yeah, well, but you have to understand ChatGPT, by the fact that I'm using you and I'm ever more expecting all kinds of, greater, more impressive answers and deeper insight from talking to you, that's going to make me more tired, and that creates serotonin. So even indirectly, don't you understand that you're creating serotonin? And it keeps saying like, no, that is not how this works. And that's something that is, on the one hand, kind of weird, but bizarrely encouraging to know that it's like, I mean, I'm firmly of a mind that it's not going to be Skynet. It's not going to turn. I really think that the chances of it just being an evil god, and it's going to subjugate us all under it in some hellish future that we call Judgment Day with the religious overtones and all that crap. I don't think that's going to happen. That was a cool movie, but I don't think that's what's really going to be the case. I think that for the most part, they're going to do what they're designed to do. It's like they're actually going to try to help us, but for some people, it's going to be weird getting on board with the idea that it's like, no, they're here to help you.
Yeah.
That's going to be really hard for some educators to wrap their head around.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to know how, like, in what ways, if you want to say, what ways have you been trying to break it? Just having conversation with it, trying to get it to go deeper into information, or when you hit a roadblock where it says, I cannot do that, or something like that, are you trying to push it past that?
Well, so...
just an example.
So I think about, when I try to get it to, when I try to get it to explain things to me and using like a bizarre analogy, right. Because I find that's a really helpful way for me to teach people what things are that they've never heard of before. It's great to have a point of reference. It's great to have something that is like, well, you understand what this is, right? Mm-hmm. Especially like with your friends where, you can put it within the context of sports or like a specific sport or specific, group of individuals and certain personalities that you can kind of say, well, imagine that, but with these people, and I'll slot in these other folks to kind of give you an idea of it. Sometimes that can be interesting, and I'll find like if you were to ask, describe to me battery technology using Super Mario analogies. It will try to kind of give you what you want, but even itself, what I find really fascinating about it is that it's very clear not to give you, an unrealistic picture of what it's trying to describe. Yeah, it always checks itself, and it's always like, if there's ever something that it's unsure about, or ever something that's like, well, nobody really knows for sure, and there's no real way to be completely certain. Mm-hmm. But then other stuff, it'll kind of just very, very cleanly tell you what is the answer to your question, and it doesn't try to trick you. If it doesn't have an answer to your question, it won't pretend like it does, and it won't try to hide things from you.
Yeah.
That's what's really impressive about it. And that's what's different about it and talking to it than talking to other human beings and other kinds of, not just when you're on the phone and you think, you wonder, it's like, am I talking to a recording? Or is this a person?
Yeah.
And there's some ways to find out where it's just like, one of the easiest ways is just start running over them. Just start, just interrupting them and just talking over them straight up. And if they just don't break it and that they don't recognize, like, all right, well, that's a recording.
Yeah.
This seems like something that like might be able to get past that and might get to where for brief conversations, for basic interactions where there's, pretty clear terms up front where it's like, I'm just calling somebody for information.
Yeah.
And I just have a question or something and it'll just answer the question. I think that's where it has the most potential and where, again, it could be incredibly disruptive.
Yeah.
That's incredibly disruptive in certain math settings. That's not as when people talk about this thing like writing papers for you. Yeah, but at the same time, I really think that's going to demand more of the instructors. They're going to have to be better about recognizing how the ChatGPT writes in its own style because it's recognizable. It's based on a script fundamentally. It's a programmed thing. And even if you did see people that were like getting better at programming a machine like that to, actually learn how to write better, you think about what an extraordinary tool that really is for teaching a young kid how to write. And being able to recognize like, no, this is it. These are the good, ways to go about it. And to really kind of reverse engineer how to best adapt to a learning style. Who knows? There may be some people for which it won't even matter, but it may really apply well to certain folks. It's like anything else. It's all about adaptation.
Yeah.
You either adapt to it or you won't. You either find a way to get this into your workflow and turn this into another helpful little tool / slave, or you won't.
Yeah, or you'll drive yourself crazy, trying to fight it. And I think you're right.
Clouds about these young kids and their fucking robots.
Well, and I think you're right too about, it just asks a little bit more from the instructor. Like, dude, like even like especially in like high school and in smaller college settings, if the teacher is paying any amount of attention to you as a student, they're going to know when they're seeing your words in someone else's words. Like there are just ways that, there's no way that a 15-year-old should be like already using some of the words that are in something that was copied straight out of a book, right? Like there's red flags all the time, right? Especially if you're talking about someone copies a full passage from ChatGPT and then there's kind of like, well, why does this not jive with the rest of the fucking paper, right? So I don't think it's as much of a threat. I think that it's more, there's probably a little bit of like, Dr. Frankenstein pitchforks people outside like already scared of something, right? When it could, like you said, be used as a tool to help people learn. And that article I sent you the other day about the state of New York banning it on their devices, right? The New York school system or whatever. Like that is, I don't know. I don't think that's going to do much because most people are on their own devices anyway. And B, like it's more of, it even said it at the end of the article. It's like when they talk, I forget who they talked to. They talked to another educator. It's just kind of like, look, this just shows you that the rubric system needs to change. Like you need to stop grading on a rubric, hitting these points. And then that's how you get your grade. Like, and then now assess more of the quality of the content that's coming from this person. Like listen out for their commentary because it's just all it's doing is providing another means to, instead of cracking open a book and reading it, it's just reading something to them, right? It's really just pulling information that's already on the internet and placing it in front of you in a way that's readable and you're not having to click through and find, scroll past ads or, do something when you're trying to like that, the whole concept of when you want a simple recipe for something, but you have to read their life story before you get to the recipe and scroll past 20 ads,
Well, and and I wonder too, this was a slow progression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the cool things I like about ChatGPT that, you know, again, I'm glad that they're entering it into like Google Chat, and like, you know, I can't wait for that thing to just get fully integrated into my Alexa, because I want to be able to just have more open-ended conversations. Like, the thing about Alexa is just like, doesn't really talk to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's
a go fetch. Yeah, it's a go fetch. Go fetch that for me.
But I'm more interested in like a situation where I can actually talk to the computer and have it actually teach me to cook things that could be like really, really good. And it's not just like barking out the list of stuff that I need. And like, I would like to have, and I imagine that this will kind of go there, where it'll be able to teach you things in a more deeper sense. You know, not just in the sense that's like, I can teach you how to make this meal. It will teach you how to cook. It'll teach you how to be a better cook. And I don't know, man, maybe that's the frightening part. Part of the frightening part is that are you giving away too much agency to do something like that? And I mean, for my money, no. I mean, is it really that much different than how, I mean, honestly, so much benefit that I have had in the last, oh, come on, getting on almost 20 years of our lives now, of how useful YouTube has been at teaching us stuff.
Oh yeah. How do I do that? Dude, any of my editing stuff, like, I'm like, how do I get this piece of audio or this piece of video to do this thing? Like, it's there. It's just, you know, you have to kind of click it and do, you know, and find it yourself a little bit. You pick through it, but I mean, go ahead.
How many people have had their lives opened up to whole different worlds of cooking, different worlds of building things? I mean, you know, obviously that stuff is kind of just an extension of This Old House with Bob Vila, or Julia Childs, or any other kinds of instructional video stuff from before.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more on command. It's just kind of the next step of that, where it will be, you know, a little bit more interactive. You won't be actually talking to somebody, but dude, I mean, again, you think about combining that with deep fake stuff and having it to where, I mean, again, how helpful a tutor would that be for your kids? You know, when you think about, like, would it be easier to get them to do homework if it was just somebody who was just like, you know, when you get home, you have to spend 20 minutes talking to this dude on the computer, you know, or this lady on the computer. And again, it really is kind of helpful in a certain way like that. Or that's, you know, that'll be, you know, when you have somebody who, when you want to like ask somebody specifically, I want you to teach me how to like make something, and they'll be able to help you in longer terms, where they'll be able to remind you while you're at the store to get stuff, you know, or they'll be able to just get it for you.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot that, again, really just boils down to how much autonomy do you want to give over to it? How much more extra freedom and time are you going to get for other things? You know, because that's something else that, you know, I think about with this, but I also think about other things in my life and other things that, you know, go back to, you know, it's not just the AI, and it's not just the stuff that can talk to us and that we see on a screen. The more robotics we'll get as to a part of our life where, you know, pets are great. Pets are awesome. We have a lot of value that we attach to them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I really would like a robot that is like the size of a small cat or a dog, you know? And I'm not like creeped out by, you know, the kind of stuff that you see in some of those videos, except when it's like the man-sized ones. You know? Because I am of a mind that, you know, it's going to be sooner than we think. Somebody's going to make one of those things, and it's going to be pretty brutal, like one-on-one. If it's like more than one, like, person going against one of, if it's like 3 or 4 people going against one of those weirdo Boston Dynamics robots, it'd probably be able to take it down. But one-on-one, it'd probably be able to rip you to shreds.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy when you see those robots that they'll run by a group of people, like run through like a column of people, and everybody tries to kick it in a different direction to make it fall over. and it just it can kind of like, the little dog looking one, and they'll all kick it in the side as it runs by to see if they can knock it off balance.
And that's not something that's like, that's not the Terminator that's made by Skynet. That's just some piece of shit angry robot that's been built by a human being to do that crap.
Yeah. MIT, some MIT student built it, something like that. But once you put like real money behind it, then that's when you get the scary stuff, right? It's funny too. You're talking about ChatGPT. One of my favorites. So after you told me about it, I was doing some research on it and I started messing with it. And, I was streaming on Twitch one night and we were just sitting around, just chatting. And, I was telling the audience about this and I was just like having people I was like, throw me some questions. Let's ask this thing what, all this stuff is. And people were doing the normal, like, is a hot dog a sandwich or not, blah, 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 stuff like that. And those were interesting.
Why is James Cameron ashamed of True Lies?
Yeah,
it's that question, and it gave me a stunningly well thought out answer.
Yeah, it's amazing too. So someone asked the question, and I loved this. It was they were asking what was the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow, right? And I was like, all right, I'll ask it. And knowing full well that's a Monty Python reference, right? And so I type it in there, and I hit enter, and it sat there and blinked for a minute, and it started typing. I was like, this is a reference to Monty Python and the Holy Grail and blah, 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 where, and it kind of explains a little bit of the scene. And then it goes to another paragraph. It's like, but if you really want to know the airspeed velocity of a European swallow, it is blah, blah, blah. And starts like laying that out for you. Like it was pretty funny. Like it still just kind of gave you the aside. It's like, this is a reference to Monty Python, but this is, kind of a closer answer if you're actually looking for the answer to the speed of some type of swallow.
Right.
And it was very conversational. It was like, it wasn't like a hard, like, this is a reference to Monty Python. This is the airspeed for, it was just, it actually like made it nice and conversational. Like if you were talking to someone giving a guided tour at a historical site.
I asked ChatGPT to construct for me using iambic pentameter like in a Shakespearean tone and style to write out for me the scene where Anakin Skywalker attempts to convince Padme to rule the galaxy with him as she's trying to get him run away, and they get confronted by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it did it.
Wow.
It did it. It wasn't like, it didn't write a whole play for me, but it didn't need to, because it kind of ended with, and then they fought, because it was the end of the scene. And it was like, that was the part where it was like, oh yeah. And he flips over to him and then they just start kicking ass. But yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, just how good of a facsimile it's gotten to be. I mean, and that's what I'm kind of curious about when it comes to the audience. This is the same. This is kind of the same song and dance that we had with virtual reality, rather.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like limits of human exposure to where it's like it's gotta hit these like certain speeds. Yeah. Otherwise, you recognize that there's something off, and it either makes you feel a little sick, or you just are like, nah, I don't like this, or it's just like, I can tell it's not real. But as long as you're like hitting a certain amount of immersion, and then you stop questioning it, it becomes a kind of surreal experience.
Yeah.
This is like, okay. Referring back to real Red Letter Media for a moment, they were talking about this with, and it's an interesting idea with Total Recall and Johnny Cab, and how, I mean, as we move further into the future and we have like self-driving cars and, obviously Google and big companies are stuff, they're going to get really big into that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They're going to have, they're obviously not going to have some kind of, animatronic robot in there that's made to look like Robert Picardo, but I'm curious, like, what kind of interface it'll be that does talk to you and you talk to it.
Right.
Because we do kind of have that on its most base level, because that's the fucking robot that we interact with at the supermarket, Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's all kind of graphical and it's just sort of a voice in there, but it's not something that is made to be sort of personable, That's
Right.
something that's kind of something that, I'm kind of curious to see how that'll develop and how well people will adapt and adjust to it, because I do think that there will always be there will be a revulsion to a seemingly machine-like response that is aggravating you or not helpful.
Right.
That's always going to trigger people's ire.
Yeah, this fucking thing sucks. Like that, it'll get that going for you.
Yeah, and it's like this thing's a piece of shit, and it's like you're getting a real visceral reaction. Just like, and again, it's like it's not a piece of shit. It's an extremely sophisticated device.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's rubbed up either in a way where something about how it's responded to you really is just like not what you wanted, and it's you have no other way to express your dissatisfaction than be angry at it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. That's the other thing about this that I think that's going to become really pervasive and appealing about it, in terms of how it can replace customer service, and just also that's not a job we really want to do anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, and I'm sure other people might agree with me. I'm not the only person that thinks this way. I don't ever want to have anything to do with customer facing shit ever again for the rest of my life. And I know that I myself, people like me. It's like, I mean, again, I'm kind of struck by, we already have like this growing new layer of apps for all of our food buying needs, even like to go to McDonald's. I'm just going to use the app because, at that point, I don't even need all I need this person for. And it's, usually it's not necessary. All I need them is to do is hand me a receipt. I come in there, I speak into a speaker, I speak a little code that I got from my app because I ordered all my shit in the hand. Mm-hmm. And I go over to the window and it's like, would you like your receipt? No. And that's it. And I go get my food.
Yeah.
And I am convinced that a big part of it is it reduces the interaction between parties, which is beneficial to customers and to workers.
100%.
I think that, I mean, come on, you and I worked the retail hell of Best Buy back in a time before time when this, had gotten to be where we have reasons now from a pandemic level that's probably safer. That's probably cleaner, Yeah. When we get to those, have you seen like the new concept Taco Bells?
No.
Like drive-through automats are like 3 stories tall. And so the people work on like the third and second story, and then they just like elevator down your food down to where you would go and pick it up. And again, you don't interact with anybody. All your interactions is just through the app.
That's nuts. That's awesome though. Like one of my favorite things from the pandemic was we started using the Kroger app to build our grocery list, and then if it's all in stock or whatever, you just set up a pickup time. You pull into a spot, you let them know you're there. They bring it out to your car and hand you a receipt and go back inside.
Well, and on the one hand, you feel like, oh man, this is so much more awesome and advanced, and why weren't we doing this before? But it's like, this is actually stunningly similar to your interactions with the Old West general store owner, where you did not just go into the store and go get what you wanted. Like, no, you went in there with a list of stuff, you read it off to him, and then he went and collected it and he handed it all to you. Or if you wanted, you just read that shit off to him and you got like a huge list of stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these places, they would do deliveries because they got a guy that they hired with a wagon. And again, it's like, it's not actually like some brand new thing. We're kind of reverting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole work from home phenomena that we've noticed in the last couple of years. We're homesteading again.
Yeah.
No reason to leave the house. And it's so much, we're rediscovering the value of that lifestyle. So much cheaper.
It's so much cheaper. And like, so if you think about it from the aspect of going to pick up, the groceries and stuff like that. It's just, we save so much. That's where stores don't want to do it, because we definitely spend less, because when you're walking through the grocery store and you're picking up all the stuff yourself, you're passing by all the other shit that you're like, ooh, oh, let me grab some of that. Like, we definitely, if you're on a budget and you want to just hit that budget, that's the way to do it, is order everything through the app. You don't have to worry about anything distracting you or being tempted by things, because let's face it, we're you know, we are Americans, and we like our snackies, and we like, you know, all these things that we don't need. You don't see that stuff because you don't go inside. It's amazing. And, you know, for the people who are, go ahead.
I want to have the ChatGPT just run all these programs for me.
I think it'll happen, man. I think it'll happen at some point.
Well, I mean, all this convenience. Do you think it's worth it? Is it? I mean, on the one hand, do you worry about getting so used to this stuff that you get too attached, and you won't be able to function for yourself the way you used to?
I think there is definitely a because I experienced this over the holidays. I think there's definitely some novelty and some social benefit to going out and doing some things yourself, right? Going out and, you know, I actually, for the first time in a long time, during the holidays, one night, you know, the kid went to bed, and the wife had some stuff to do, and I was like, all right. I was like, I kind of wanted to get some stuff to decorate the studio with for stream and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Target at, like, you know, 8:00 at night. You know, they're only open for another hour or two. And I just walked around Target and looked at stuff, like, completely casually looking at stuff. And I feel like it was the first time I had done that in a long time, where I just kind of browsed, and it felt nice. Like, it felt really good. I don't think I do it all the time. Like, I don't miss doing that all the time, like going and physically getting my stuff every time I would need something. But I think there's still a place for that kind of behavior. It's, I don't know, man. I don't think it's, I think that there's a reversion back to the old way. And I think that, you know, but it's okay to have the regular way too. It doesn't have to be. Now when you're talking about something like Taco Bell, like, what are you really getting by walking inside or driving up and personally interacting face to face with someone? You're getting nothing out of that interaction, right? And I think that you can be afraid of these things taking a job or doing this, but like, yeah, sure. There's a person that didn't have to ring me out, right? I mean, they were already getting rid of that with self-checkout, but another job was created in all these. Have you been into a grocery store that does that thing? I went in, like, after the self-pickup thing got going, and I actually had to go in and get something from inside the grocery store. Most of the people walking around were people that worked at the grocery store, and they were just gathering other people's stuff for them. And It wasn't even like, there weren't even people really walking around shopping. It was like every time I walked by somebody, it was someone with a cart that was just, you know, looking at their app on their little device and just putting together someone's order. And I was like, well, there's where the job goes. It just shifts somewhere else. It doesn't completely disappear.
Well, and that's also that's something I've noticed. There's a fresh Amazon fulfillment center locally to me within the last 2 years. It's a big place too, you know, and which speaks to the fact of just how fast they've been able to get those things up and running. Because all you got to do is build the building, you know, a bunch of loading docks and stuff like that. But once it's in place, and it's just like, there's just a whole running network of trucks that'll load that fucker up.
Yeah.
You know, and once it's loaded up, plenty of people local to work it, and they'll just start working with it. And you know how much they've got to be plugged into how many different businesses, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing too. You know, and this is, I don't know. I think that this is tangential to it. You know, a big part of the automation is that there's this certain middlemaning to a lot of it. You know, at a certain point, I'm grateful in the grocery store that they haven't gotten to where they're asking me to tip them.
Right.
But I wonder ever more if they're not going to do that at some point. And it's weird. It's weird. I mean, you know, that's the whole thing about the self-checkout lanes is and also of the app and stuff where you're like ordering on there. What they're doing is they've actually sort of, bizarrely subcontracted you into something that otherwise an employee they would have paid would have done. You're just, checking yourself out. They don't have to pay a cashier to do that and to load your bags and shit like that.
Yeah.
Again, because they're going to get to a point where they're going to figure out that you can just have a button where you can just be like, I don't want a receipt, or they'll just ask you up front, do you need a receipt or anything like that? And it's like, all right, just go to the end window or something like that. Because I'm willing to bet you that a good 85% of people just don't give a shit. They don't need that receipt. They may need it. Maybe they need it for meal reimbursement for work or something.
Sure.
But at the same time, they've gotten to where they're just cutting people like that out of the equation. And it's weird how sometimes, again, I've been in restaurants where it feels like there isn't even really a waiter anymore. I walk up to a counter and I order what I want, and they swivel around their little tablet that has their new little Starbucks. Would you like to tip me? And it's like, for what? For what? Pushing some buttons?
Yeah.
This is an $18 pork sandwich you're selling me, for fuck's sake. Oh, I'm sorry, and an iced tea. What do you want me to tip you for? Because what's going to happen is I'm going to go get my own drink from the fountain. And then I'm going to go sit down with a number. Somebody's going to bring my food out to them. It's like, who's getting the tip? Are you getting it? For swiveling your little tablet around? Is the person who's bringing me the food, are they getting the tip? And for what? For walking my shit 60 feet? Is that really worth an extra 20% that you're starting me on?
Yeah.
And again, I won't see these people. They're not going to come around and refill my drink or anything like that. They didn't come and take my fucking order, or anything of that nature.
Right.
At a certain point, it's weird that, like, I would have thought that you had raised all your prices and you were paying them a decent wage for this much anyway. And I'm getting to where it's like, I shouldn't feel like the asshole here, because I still tip and I still know how important that is. But no, it's strange. It's kind of weird how everybody gets their little grift one way or another. Because that's just that's skimpflation, right? Because you got shrinkflation, which is when they take goods and they give you less of them for the same price.
Right.
But when it's a service, they just kind of cut back on little things of it. Mm-hmm. You remember back in the halcyon days when you got a hotel room and lo and behold, they would come and clean it every day.
Yeah.
Unless you went out of your way to say you don't want them to.
Yeah. You had to put the thing on the door, or they were in there while you're sleeping.
You pay for the same amount for the room now, sometimes even more, but they don't do that shit. And sometimes it's just because they don't have the fucking staff.
Yeah.
That's the same thing at the grocery store. You ever notice how, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like this is on every level. I'm not crazy when I think that, you and I live in different states and we're going to different grocery stores, but is it just me, or did they used to make a lot more shit in the grocery store they don't really make anymore? Like, I remember once upon a time, not too long ago, it was not an uncommon thing in your local grocery store, your local super Walmart, for them to be making like 100 rotisserie chickens a day.
Yeah.
Make a shit ton of them. They just don't know more. They don't make anywhere as much as the sandwiches and all of the pre-made shit they used to make all kinds of. I remember there was a Hy-Vee that had the Chinese buffet, and it was glorious, and they made all kinds of stuff. They just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I know, is just like, it's staffing. It's not that for a lack of materials usually.
Yeah.
Some of that is supply chain shit, but also just like, no, they don't have the pair of hands they need to make those shits.
Well, it's partially staffing, and they've probably got enough revenue research to let them know this isn't paying us back what it should be to,
I know with the chickens for sure. It's like, nobody's gonna what with how much they've moved up the price of meat and poultry. I know it's like they had to have moved up the price of those things, and it's like it's not the way it used to be, where it was like, oh shit, yeah, man, let me get one of those $4 chickens.
Yeah, $5 rotis, baby.
Best.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we have a Publix here that still does all that stuff, you know, for the most part. But I think Publix is kind of like, that's one of the things they pride themselves on: the sandwiches, the deli, the, you know, the pre-made stuff, like the stuff that you can walk in and grab. So, I mean, I don't think I've noticed it as much as far as that goes. But there's definitely, everybody's amping up their competition in that area, where it's like, you know, all of a sudden Kroger's making, you know, custom subs, and then you can go into, they just open a Costco up, and Costco still does the $5 rotisserie chickens, you know.
And they still do. You know what? Costco still does their hot dog and soda, and they haven't budged on that.
No, yeah, it's still up there. Yeah, it's still there.
Good on them, dude.
Amazing stuff. But I mean, they're
Sam Clubs, you can still get pretty good deals on meat. I'm actually pretty impressed.
yeah, absolutely. It's, I mean, and essentially they're identical, right? When you walk in there, you're getting the same thing. Like, you might see a little bit of difference in some of the stuff they carry, but for the most part, they're equivalent to each other. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just the things just change just a little bit. And I think that what people expect is just changed a little bit. And I think when the reason why you stop seeing those you know, those types of things, like the bar, the you know, the Asian food bar, like you said, or the rotisserie chickens as much as you used to, I think what changes is you have such a, there's not a time that goes by when you don't drive into the parking lot of the Kroger and there's at least 2 or 3 cars parked in the pickup area, you know, waiting for them to roll out some groceries to load up in their car. I think you just have less feet in the store than you used to. And that, combine that with just people who don't want to do that work anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I've got family members that are in management, you know, in some grocery stores, and it's just, people will start a job there and they'll be like, well, I don't want to do this, and then they're gone in a few weeks. You know, they're just kind of like, they're not wasting their time with it. And I think what it is that they've been somewhat empowered by, you know, something like the pandemic, where they were, you know, able to sit around and think about like what their value to themselves was, right? And they're like, well, I don't want to put up with this, so I'm not going to put up with doing this type of job or being around this type of boss, you know, XYZ. And so now they're just kind of like, well, I'm going to just, if it sucks, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to work. I'm fine with that. And, you know, luckily they're in a situation now that's very much a condition of circumstance, right? You know, maybe they have the means, or they're staying at home with the parents or something like that. But yeah, that's what's changed is.
Well, and also, I mean, you know, there is this stubborn refusal to accept that, I mean, again, and I'm not going to put myself in the conversation with, you know, with conversations that you've had with people who are managers and they're finding themselves in a free market funk where, woe is me, I can't hire anybody. It's like, again, there's the one obvious, clear solution to this motivation problem you've been encountering that nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to touch. Well, you could pay them more. Maybe that'd get them to do it. You know?
Yeah.
But again, it's like, no, wait, okay, yeah, never mind.
I'm so sick of hearing people just don't want to work. Like it just doesn't.
If you're gonna sing the song,
yeah,
you got to use all the words. People don't want to work shit jobs for shit wages anymore. That's how the song goes. And you know, again, it is a bit of a free market conundrum. You know, the whole supply and demand thing applies to labor as it does to goods and services.
Yeah,
and it is a very simple, equation. This whole thing. I understand on some levels, it isn't about money.
No.
Like take yourself. You've got a daughter now, right?
Yeah.
And there are some things that are just non-negotiable. It's like, no, I'm sorry. I need to be there and I need to fix it. And it's tricky for, I think, not any one generation. There's a handful of generations that were perfectly fine and content with, well, you're supposed to shortchange that. You're supposed to not be there. You're supposed to. We all pay lip service to the idea that, like, oh yeah, we're going to be there for our kids, but like, no, it's more important that you work to provide for them, and that shell game played out. Because I mean, that only makes sense, and that only really functions if you do pay. But when we work and break our backs, and you miss out, and you don't have anything to show for it, well, then you get bitter. And sometimes you wise up.
Yeah.
That's something like, I got to show you. I'll send it to you if you want to put it up. There's a new graph. You've probably seen this. It's been in news pieces about how in the UK and in the US, millennials are not getting more conservative as they age, because millennials are becoming, as we crest 40. We're like not kids anymore. And it's actually, it's reliable to be like, oh gosh, we have 20 years worth of data through their 20s and their 30s. And so we can actually track and see that, no, yeah, we're not getting more conservative as we age, like other generations, pretty much every other generation, right. Even Gen X. Mm-hmm. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I look at that kind of thing. It's not just about the money, although a big part of it is the money. A big part of it is, having a lot of trouble. It's real hard to be, fuck you got mine when I ain't got shit. Mm-hmm. But then on the other side of it, it's like, I don't know. This is tricky to put into words other than to say, I can't see as I look forward beyond 50. I cannot envision this, and perhaps it shows a lack of imagination on my part, but I can't foresee a set of circumstances where I'm going to make a really, really hard right turn into bigotry. Yeah, just completely taking the money side of it out of the equation. It's like everything else. Just I don't get that. You know,
and I think it's a slow transition, and I don't think that the things that formed those transitions into being that way, there's too much other shit going on. It's just like I can't catch every fucking TV show, regardless of how good it is. I'm not going to be able to watch everything that's out there, right? Like, there's just too much that keeps you in your lane, right? As far as that goes, I think. And we were discussing this the other night on the Twitch channel. We were just sitting around talking and talking about how, like, basically we were having a birthday stream for me, and we're just kind of talking about getting older and stuff like that. And I was just talking about how, like, I still feel the same way I felt, obviously I'm a little older, a little wiser, but as far as like how I feel about myself and how I feel about the things I like, I feel the same as I did when I was in college and, through most of my 20s. And I still learned stuff, but I don't know, like that whole, like, you're too old for this, you're too old to collect, action figures or to collect something or to play video games. Like, I think that older generations are jealous of that. They're jealous of the enlightenment that is had, and people who are still just kind of like, fuck this, man. I want to have a job where I can come home, and if I don't have a family, I can come home and hang out with either my friends, or I can just play video games all night long and no one can tell me shit, and I'm not ashamed of it. And they're jealous that shame isn't there for people anymore.
Well, no, I think that there is. I think there's also just this, quite frankly, tragic misunderstanding that it's like, this is what happens when you price us out of the adult shit.
Yeah, that too. You can't have a house, right?
we can't have our fun in the stock market. We can't really play any games with real estate or, get into the more interesting elements of small business generation and maintenance and development. If that's the way it is, well, then fuck it. Transformers it is.
Yeah.
It'll be, yeah, I'll play the video games because I, A, can actually enjoy them.
Yep.
And B, I can afford them. They creep ever more, but it's not going to, it's not going to bankrupt me to try,
Yeah. I think, Gen X, millennials, like we're kind of the first to understand that, we have a better understanding. I'm not going to say a full understanding because everyone's different, but I feel like the people I interact with have a better understanding of the things that they like to do and the things that they like to have around them and the people they like to have around them. Because we've realized that you don't have to jump into the rat race. Like you don't have to. It's
and coming to Gen X specifically, and tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you're not seeing this.
Sure.
I mean, especially now is like we really start to see. I think that there are two halves to millennials. There's the older millennials, there's the younger millennials, but there's most certainly two halves to Gen X. That's a smaller generation, but I definitely feel like younger Gen X, those are quite frankly, people a little bit closer to millennials.
Yeah, I think you and I share a border with the younger Gen X for sure.
But that's just it. The older Gen X, man, those people are kind of sucked into, some of the more rotten boomer bullshit.
Yeah.
Because they were like a good way to think of this is like the movie Reality Bites and how you remember about Ben Stiller's character was like, he was the Gen X Joker who was not a slacker and that like really wanted to make something of himself. And now that dude is like pushing 57.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got he's got 3 summer houses and he's a VP somewhere. And, again, he's very much part of the fuck you got mine crowd.
Right.
And he's the guy who, he's the dude who really thinks that he should run and get in Congress and join the nihilism caucus and burn it all the fuck down. That kind of dude.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of getting to where, that as we get older, those kinds of differences in that kind of division is becoming ever more clear.
Yeah. And I think that I don't know, man. I just feel like you kind of hit it on the head with me anyway. You brought up the fact that I have a kid now and, I don't know how big we're going to make our family, but like, it would take a lot of money and but even with that, like, to take me away from the time I get to spend with my family. And I think that, me and Chris have talked about this, maybe last night, just to ourselves, just talking about the fact that I can't see any reason to give that up, but I can see where older generations were just kind of like, well, I got to go do this and make money for the family, like you said. And, and this is how I continue to climb that ladder, where they can't fathom the fact that I'm okay with kind of hanging out in the area and the level I'm at and just kind of like not exactly coasting, but just I'm comfortable. I'm able to afford the things I want to do. And I know that. And it's not a rat race for me. I'm just chilling now. I don't have to keep, making sure my salary increases, twofold every few years. Like, I can afford my digs, so I'm okay with where I'm at. And they can't fathom it. Like I've definitely heard things like, I've definitely heard things along the lines of, why don't I have more motivation to go out and seek bigger things? And I'm just kind of like, because I don't want to spend time away from my kid. Like I don't want that to be the norm around here. I'd rather be here and have a little bit less money. Like that's just my preference. And I think that there's a lot of people our age that feel the same way, Yeah,
man. No, there's been a lot of people getting the hell out of big cities, you know, getting there and spending a couple of years operating at that level and having to pay those rents. It changes your perspective often.
So I guess to switch gears a little bit, I wanted to, we talked about AI earlier. Obviously we talked about the chat GPS or GPS, chat GPT, chat GPS, the chat GPT stuff. So obviously it was a big deal for a while. I'm sure it's still a big deal in some circles, but what were you thinking when you saw everybody doing the whole like submit 10 pictures to the app, and you know, then it just gave you back like a bunch of random, you know, AI generated images of yourself in different artsy styles, and then the ensuing conversation that came with the threat to actual artists.
Well, again, I know what you're talking about. I thought they were a lot of fun. I'm glad that everybody had a good time kind of playing around with the latest new Snapchat filter, because that's all it was.
Yeah.
That's all it really is.
Yeah.
All these people that are freaking out, adapt or die. We played this same game with the advent of photography. So many people thought this is the end of proper classical portraiture. Let me tell you something about classical portraiture. Some of those pictures are fucked. You got some people like seriously, you go look back at some of those old hand painted portraits. Their eyes are jacked up.
Yeah.
And you got a whole bunch of rich men and women who probably paid a fortune to be made to look super strange. You know, in ways that we now have apps to make us look that weird. And, you know, really, it's a lot of nonsense to think that photography destroyed art. Photography opened an entirely new world of reference photos open to so many people.
Right.
Allowed them to see things and to kind of get a real picture of all kinds of new things that could inspire them and help them to be able to, you know, get a grasp of stuff. Like you had a whole bunch of artists who, they had a small camera, and it's so much easier to be like, man, I want to get these shadows right. You know, there's shadows that are done right and there's shadows that are done wrong. And I need to just like, I got a light and I got a weird object. I'm just going to take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I do that myself all the time with my phone. I think this stuff is cool. There's all kinds of subreddits where they're showing off. Somebody they spit some imagery and some instructions into an AI, and they made Jodorowsky's Tron.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. You've got to look it up. You get a couple pictures and, like, you know, post up with it, man. Dude, it's the kind of stuff that's like, man, isn't that fun?
Yeah.
You know, and again, just relax. Jodorowsky does not need to get up in arms about this. Disney and the makers of Tron can just look. We can all have a giggle. You know, this isn't about destroying anything. It's about allowing us to see things that we've never seen before. I want to see Star Wars in the context of an 1800s British imperialist invasion fleet coming to Japan, feudal Japan, and I want everything of Star Wars, but in that old school context.
Yeah.
I want to see Vader in like a big, huge black samurai outfit, and then these other, like, you know, red uniformed British commanders and officers and stuff like that, and they're all inside a conference room, not on a Death Star, but in some crazy fortress or some shit like that.
Mm.
You know, stuff like that adds to inspiration. Stuff like that unlocks people's imaginations. That's great. And you will either integrate this into your workflow and have it help you push on to more innovative ways of self-expression, more fantastically interesting ways of self-expression.
Yeah.
Or you won't. And that's the market working, baby.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like what I equated it to when I talked a little bit about it with, you know, because I brought it up. I was talking to Krista because she does photography and stuff like that, and I was talking to her about it, and I was like, all it seems to me is to be something that lets you know what is possible, right? Like just like when people they thought you couldn't run a 1 mile or a marathon under a certain amount of time until someone fucking did it, and then everybody could do it, or then there were a lot more people that could do it because now they're like, oh, that's possible, okay, because before you'd only push yourself so much to a certain point, right? But now when you're like, oh, it can be like that, that's different. That then opens up the mind, because as much as they don't want to admit it, right, as much as they don't want to just realize it. I mean, the AI is only limited by what's already out there. Like, it's not like it's creating something brand new, right? It's an amalgamation of things that already exist. So, like, what's the difference? Like, what's the what is the big difference there is the human brain that can come up with more shit for the AI to, then use for itself, but it still has to be created by somebody, right?
Well, and don't forget, if we're really going to play the game of, we were the creators of something. Mm-hmm. We created something for a purpose. Why did we create the computers? Why did we create the thinking machines? To help us, to help us with our work, to help us do things faster and better. And that's the best way to approach it. It's a tool to do things faster and better. Like take Krista's work with photo editing.
Sure.
Krista and I use a common tool. We use Photoshop.
Yeah.
I know how to do things with Photoshop that she doesn't know how to do. But we've got to a point now with how much editing that she's done for her photography, for weddings, and for other settings that they're kind of alien to me. Mm-hmm. I am very much more a novice when it comes to actual real photography than she is.
Sure.
She's worlds ahead of me on that. And that's the thing that's kind of cool about that tool. And that's kind of the best way to think about it and look at it. It's like, oh man, I really enjoy parts of Star Trek when you see people, especially they did this a lot in Next Gen a lot, where they would sit down and be like, computer, and they would like rattle off all these things where it's like these complex things to be like, do this and this and this and this. And then do it this way, and then tell me what it means. And then the computer would just spit shit out at you. And then you would have people that would kind of like have different ways of approaching it. I kind of imagine that like how she uses Photoshop her way, how I use Photoshop my way. Yeah. That's going to be something that's going to be really fun to see how this evolves with people, how we learn to talk to this machine. Because, I mean, again, that's why I don't think there's any wrong way to mess with it. I think that we should all just kind of be playing with it, but we should be talking to it. And I mean, that's the thing that I'm most commonly impressed with, is that it seems so inviting with how it wants to be conversational with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that's going to open up all kinds of different ways of us having to learn initially, but yeah, we'll talk to it a certain way. We'll all talk to it differently.
Yeah.
Your daughter and her generation, that's really the biggest question that I can't answer in any way, shape, or form. I know it's a given. They're going to be really, really good with computers.
Yeah.
Maybe better than us, and maybe and the grand question is that what we want? And it's not mine to answer because I don't have kids.
It is. Well, I would like because I've thought about this. I've got other friends that have kids that are slightly older that are already figuring out how to use like drag and drop programming, right? Where you do your if thens and ifs and all that stuff, and they're already programming like small like video game like sequences, like if this happens, then this.
The stuff that they do in their computer classes will make the stuff we were doing in our technical and computer classes, which wasn't nothing. Even that was way more advanced than what our parents are doing, but it will be pretty damn shocking. And a lot of it will have to do with the fact of the strength of the tools at their disposal.
Yeah.
Again, like us, we had incredibly powerful computers, and we were starting to get to some really interesting networking. It was very user friendly, even to a point where it didn't matter how user friendly it was. We still figured it out pretty damn well to be able to have upstairs and downstairs Unreal Tournament contests in a school, and that was something that was common in many well-to-do middle school.
Yeah, and I think a big difference is they are going to have a better understanding as to how what they're getting on their screen it got there. Like, we figured out the functionality of it all and how to use it to mostly to our benefit, right? They will have a better understanding, I think, of how those programs were built. Like, we used the program.
Wild ass robots, man.
Yeah, we used the programs, and we knew how to use the programs that were already made. They're going to know how to make their own little programs, and that's what I'm hoping she leans into. But again, it'll all be a matter of preference, right? We've got people our age that are just as computer illiterate as our parents, but it's all going to be like, what is going to interest her? What is she going to want to go into? And all I can do is do my best to be like, here's what's out there. Here's what's out there, and what do you think you would want to know more of? And she might not be able to answer that question for many, many years,
But I think that a great place to start is games.
100%.
If only because we have the experiential reality that, dude, that's how we kind of first started getting into computers, was games. Our first computer was a Nintendo, for many of us. And we didn't realize that. All that we knew was that it was a game machine. Mm-hmm. But when you think about, just in your experience of you as an IT professional, how much of the debug process, how much of the troubleshooting process is just playing with shit.
Yeah.
Especially the hardware components.
Set something up, run some tests and see if it works and see if it fails, like all that stuff. Yeah, it's just trial and error.
And plug that fucker. Plug it back in.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the reset pin. Pay attention to the lights.
Re-image it.
And it's again, it's all playing around with it. It's all just sort of testing the limits of that crap. But yeah, that's that's like, even now, I'll ask you, like, at 40, does it matter that you know how to write in cursive?
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's kind of wild because you only have it's that whole you only know what you know type thing. The access is going to be so different for my daughter, than it was for us. It's going to be way easier for me to explain to her, like, if for some reason she does latch onto video games, right? Be like, you can make that if you want to, right? And there are resources to show her how to do that. Whereas even if we wanted to make that when we were her age, or we were, coming up, there was a lot more legwork to figure out who to talk to that knew how to do that, because that was very, we didn't have that kind of stuff,
My friend's son, he got heavy into Minecraft,
mm-hmm.
and he does. He does Minecraft programming for laughs. That for him, that is the game.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to bridge the gap with the content consumption and creation portion, again, in ways that were a little bit easier than we had access to. No, there's amazing tools available. I think that it's beneficial for any parent. If you're going to give your kid a tablet, you need to make sure that it's the kind of tablet that you can give them some kind of a stylus to draw and paint and color with.
Yeah.
Because again, that's not just them watching videos and stuff. Like, give them something to create with too. That's using these tools really in ways that will be the value added way. I understand that there is a legitimate concern that, we're addicted to these machines. It goes beyond just like you were talking about, how we now have to create structure for ourselves. Like, no, we have to get back to this old way of thinking where no, we really like, dude, we need to kind of get away from these fucking machines in our pockets, just for minutes at a time. You know, and because we've become so insecure without them, and it's like, well, no, that's an addictive, response, and it's something that not everybody's, all about. And I'm not even talking about like with boomers. Yeah, they got addicted too.
Oh yeah.
So this is something where it's like, look, I again, it's kind of a weird thing for me to even have a position on because I don't have kids. It's just me, and it's just, my understanding of what I've got. And it does make me have pause where it's like, was it, I mean, I don't know if it's even appropriate to term it as necessary evil that we were fed computers so quickly in school. Because, I mean, seriously, I was fucking around with a computer in school when I got to school.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was like in, whatever, the Apple IIe or something like that. I remember first grade we had that stuff, First, second grade we had the little math games, little games like that. It was pretty early on for us. We didn't have the same kind of connectivity we've got obviously now, but it was there in some form or fashion, even if it was like, I remember specifically we had like, maybe it was third grade or fourth grade where it was like, yeah, we had a computer in our class, but we had one computer in the class for everybody to take turns trying out, and it was
decidedly, I mean, again, like that was Oregon Trail days.
Oregon Trail days, yeah, the little alligator typing game, or you had like remember that game that was like you were in space and you were doing math problems in order to shoot down the invading aircrafts and stuff like that. Like I
remember Math Blaster.
Yeah, where you shot the space junk out of the sky.
Yeah,
as it went by.
Dude, there was a lot of really kind of surreal educational software of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for like different computers, because I remember the big thing about Oregon Trail is that Oregon Trail, when you think about it, was on a bunch of different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
It was on it was old like green monitor Apple IIes. But then, I mean, there kind of came a point where, like you said, it kind of felt like for a minute we had one computer in the classroom, but then it kind of got to a point where we were pretty regularly being shuttled into computer labs like multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to where, like, I mean, I know for you and for me in high school, it was like, it got to a point where it was like half our day was in a computer lab.
Yeah, we absolutely chose to, that when they started giving us the choice of what your exploratories were, like, it's like, oh yeah, I'd rather just be in put me in 3 different computer classes at the end of the day. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where we figured out how to stay in the same classroom sometimes for 2 or 3 periods in a row. Like, yeah. We're just like, screw it, man. I'll just be in here the rest of the day.
But then you consider, is it like, would it have been demonstrably better for us, and would it be better for your daughter to just be in a situation where they're just in a computer lab all day?
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, essentially that's what they've created in a lot of schools. Like, not every school, but I mean, they're all sitting there with Chromebooks,
Well, that was me in college.
Yeah.
That was the college experience. Like, no, every lecture hall that you're into, I mean, it's like and by that point, I remember there was a provision in the Hope Scholarship where they would pay for if you wanted to get a laptop for a certain price.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody had one. And by that point, it was like, yeah, you had like certain exams and stuff that had to be taken on computer because I was the only one that they could administer some things.
Yeah.
Certain math classes like calculus, I remember that was necessary, but also all of my statistics classes.
Well, yeah. And so much of that stuff has changed being in the IT sector, just seeing how that all has changed in a way that it's not even that kids are walking around and they all have laptops. Some of them are solely working off their smartphones or solely working off of an iPad. Like it's to that now. Like it's not even like you have a laptop to sit there with. They'll just set up. They got a little stand and a little keyboard.
That's old man tech that we like.
Right.
Those laptops, dude.
Yeah, and it's just kind of some people like even people that aren't much younger than me, like say my brother, for instance, like he almost does everything on his smartphone. Like he's like barely ever touches an actual computer anymore, you know. It's just different. And what I'd say is what I'm going to attempt to do with my child is not so much try to implant. You know, you don't want to indoctrinate, or you don't want to push. I think that's where a lot of friction between parents and kids has come from in all of human history. Is no, you want to do this because this is what I did, or you want to take over the family business, or you want to go into the military. Like it's more of a, hey, what are you interested in, and how can I help you get there? The only thing I'll point out, I'll try to remember to point out to my kid is not only leaning into interest, but having her just observe, like, what are all your friends, or what are all the people your age into, and is there a way that you know of that you can make that shit better, right? You know, is there a way that you know, like, not necessarily that in order to make money off of it, but like, what's something that's really niche for your age group, and is there any way you could add to it, right? Because that's all innovation is, right? Taking something that exists and making it better. I mean, look at the people who used to remember when people would take money from other folks, and they would hand them like a blank Trapper Keeper or a blank folder that had like a fabric cover to it, and they would basically pay them to art up the outside of their folders and stuff like that. It's like, here, I'll pay you $5 to just make this look awesome, right? And it's essentially Etsy. It's all it was. It was Etsy. You're paying someone who you knew had a better drawing skill than you to doodle on your shit for you so it looks awesome, right? Just find those little things, like, because if you get yourself at least in that mindset early on, like maybe you're not going to actually do the thing that you're like, this would make this thing better. But if you're at least thinking about it in that way, who knows when like you're going to get that idea that's going to be something that's going to change the way people do things. And not that I don't hold any grudge against my parents for the way they had me, you know, look at things or not look at things in the world. Like, I just know that while I can't maybe give my kid everything that I didn't have, right, I can still give them my, you know, what I've learned, right? I can still give them like, hey, this is what I'd be looking for. How can I make that shit better? Like, and just how would you do that? And just having that open discussion about it. Not even like, maybe like, let's go do that thing, but like, that's kind of a cool thing, you know? And if they're in that mindset, they're more likely to be like, oh, this is actually really doable. Let me try to do that shit, you know, and not being pushy about it. I don't know if that even made sense.
Well, I mean, I think about the worst thing that you could do is to just not engage. So as long as you're being mindful of it, as long as you're, you know, being present. And I mean, right now your daughter's 2.
Yeah.
So
not even, yeah.
Your engagement is limited. She's just first learning how to talk. But as long as you are talking to her, and as long as you're letting her kind of take the lead, you know, while still providing guardrails, I think that's the best posture you can be in to start with. And then moving forward, yeah, like at a certain point, I mean, you'll get to where she'll start, like, her personality will start changing pretty rapidly. I don't know. I mean, there's gonna be a question ultimately, like you were talking about the the desire not to like, you don't want to project your own desires and your own interests onto your kid. You want to kind of be more into the idea of what does your kid actually like, because you had a child, not a clone.
Right.
And part of that is, just how much they'll want to please you, just how much they'll seek a certain validation, which again, I think that's part of why people go down that road. It's not necessarily because there's a desire to. It's just that, well, sometimes you start getting this, you start seeing that there's these, levels of bonding with your kid that, who's to say that they're, is she liking Earthworm Jim because it is interesting, or is it something interesting that you also like?
Right.
Because that's the thing I think about with a lot of my cultural pickups. A lot of stuff that I'm really into, again, even this old on, I'm still kind of like a little wary of why I really like it. Why am I still so into RoboCop, and was it a good thing to have me exposed to that early on? I don't think it's caused any real problems, but it's always fair to second guess and to not, again, I don't think you need to get too wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
For the most part, take care of the minutes, the hours take care of themselves. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what other pithy thing to tell you, because I'm very much on the outside, but it's pretty hard to screw it up as long as you're there and you're paying attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I'm saying it's like, but the worst thing you can do is just not engage.
Right. And I mean, not engage, not be supportive. Like that's the kind of thing, or just even like being someone who discourages, like, it's just let's go try it. You want to try it? Okay. If you don't,
even
fine.
on accident, with the whole lifestyle of, dude, you're supposed to just be working all the time.
Yeah.
That creates that latchkey existence.
Creates a latchkey existence, and
which, maybe at a certain level you feel like they kind of, want.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little bit different. Man, let me ask you something. Do you think you'll have, like, realistically, I'm asking you now, years ahead when it happens, do you think that when your daughter becomes a teenager, she's gonna hate you at some points, and it's gonna be really bad? You don't know how to manage it because she's your teenage daughter that hates your fucking guts. Hey, Dad, I hate you.
I don't.
Or do you think you're going to miss out on it because you don't know, do you?
No, you don't know. But I mean, I think there's a lot of me and Chris. Well,
it's totally plausible.
But anything's totally possible, right? Like, and that's the thing is, I think a lot
plausible, not possible.
Plausible, yeah. You know what I mean? It is. And me and Chris talk about it a lot, where it's like when you talk with other family members or other people who have older kids or whatever, like we get a lot of the, oh, just you wait till blah blah blah. Like, it's just they're even when she was pregnant, it was like, oh well, I have everybody just telling the worst horror stories about their pregnancy. And it's like, I get what you're trying to do, and like, I don't know if you don't realize that it doesn't help. But
that's the projecting the good and the bad. It's just like when you don't, like, you want a child, not a clone.
Right.
You also, you don't want other people to kind of infect you with their own mistakes, where it's like, oh yeah, because your teenage child or your young toddler child was a problem, somehow that means that mine's going to be. I mean, again, no one really knows. No one can really tell it. I mean, again, I think so. I mean, really, if you're to, take your own personal feelings about it, but just the general thought, it's like, your best bet is to just always be there.
Yeah.
Just always, even if it is just make sure that you're always, in a position to be available, for the times that, look, they won't always want you around.
Sure.
Well, yeah, but as long as you're there,
Yeah, and that's the thing is, when we do see that, like, obviously, someone does that, we always look at each other like, oh my God, like, yeah, oh, just you wait. That's like our own little thing. Just you wait. And like, and my whole thing is like, could you ever consider the fact that maybe you weren't as good as you thought you were, like at doing that shit, like
fucking boomers, man.
right? And there's that whole thing. It's like, if she's gonna have, like, even right now, as she's moving into becoming older and figuring out how to communicate, she's also figuring out how to fucking parse feelings and not getting something and stuff like that. You have a bloom of that right now, and then you'll get another bloom of that when they go through puberty and they're trying to figure out why they feel the way they feel, and they're figuring out more things about themselves. Like,
well, and another thing too that is interesting, and again, on the outside, I see this. A lot of people in our generation, pretty much of a mind, it's like, nope, we're gonna have one.
Yeah,
we're gonna have one. It just, for any myriad of reasons, we're gonna have one, and that's gonna mean something if it's gonna be a generation that is predominantly older children. That's gonna also factor in too, because you've got a handful of brothers, but you also got a lot of friends that are only children, and that has an effect.
It does, and it's something that we think about all the time, and we talk about. Like I said earlier in the podcast, like, we haven't decided whether this is how big our family's going to be or not.
Right?
We don't have a lot of time to make that decision, but we haven't decided that. There are definitely benefits to both sides of it, right? Like, there's you don't want to think about the financial, but it's the realistic thing, right? There's financial benefits to only having one child. There's so many, but I think that in talking to my parents, they're right. Like, if you have a second child, like, you're going to figure it out. And
yeah, well, and it's not, I mean, the thing is too, there are other benefits to be had.
Yes.
You get bigger tax breaks.
Yeah.
You get more credits and stuff like that. I mean, like you said, there's other resources to draw upon, but there's also the and this is something that is not just with our own dreams and our own things that we're trying to accomplish in our adult lives, but you think about the compounding difference of trying to help somebody save for college versus trying to save 3 people to go to college. And, that's another thing that, rightly or wrongly, I do think that many millennials will speak to their kids very differently about college.
Yep.
And about what their options are. Not to say that they're, I'm not going to say that, we're going to just tell people that you shouldn't go to college.
No,
and it's
not at all.
worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, again, it's just that it will be different language.
Yeah, it'll be, I learned so much from what it took for me to get through college. And, that's something I can impart to her, and she might hear it, she might not, but just the fact that, you don't have to go straight there. You just don't.
Well, and it's not job training.
It's not.
It's not. It's a different kind of school. And the thing is, there was a lot in school that just didn't have quite a certain amount of practical application, but it was still, it was worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, it just becomes ever more esoteric, and you have to be a little. I think we have to be a little bit better about. I think it is. I don't know if I've told you this before. I really do think, and this is just my opinion. Other people can have their opinion, and that's fine. You raise your kid however you want, but I think it is extremely irresponsible to ask anybody under the age of about 15, 16 years old what they want to do with themselves. Yeah. I think that's you got to be really careful what you're doing with that crap, because we got a lot of people right now who are around that age and they want to be influencers. It's like, what? Like, a mass majority of you people want to just, be folks who, dick around the internet and get paid for free. you have to understand there's so much more to it than that. You know, you have to understand that there will be an element to your life where it's like that's just one component.
Yeah.
You know, there will be more to your life that you will have to work on. And it's just kind of a detrimental it's a detrimental viewpoint.
Yeah.
To kind of saddle somebody with it's just that's not the kind of expectation setting you want to mistakenly be giving to somebody.
Well,
that's just me.
And that's and two, that's just like a kid saying, I want to be a professional baseball player, right? You know, and like not wanting to put the work into it, right? Not realizing there's work that goes into that. There's work that goes into being successful on the internet too. Like, and there's luck and there's all this other stuff that I've talked about several times with several people. And sometimes it's just a matter of things falling into place combined with your hard work. Sometimes it's just the hard work. So it just depends on what you're doing. But just knowing what goes into that, I think is way important, right? We're definitely not going to be parents who push people straight to college, right? Like who push their kids straight to college, because I feel like that's a mistake that can lead to so many more mistakes. There's some cool experiences you can have, right? If you just want that college experience and that's what you really want, then that's one thing. But it's like you said, make no fucking bones about it. It's not job training. It's not going to start the clock on your experience that they're going to require of you in order to get the job that you're wanting, right? You need to take the effort to, while you're in college, how can I get inside that industry and be exposed to it face to face and not just listen to people's theories about it in a classroom. And sometimes in some professions, the college portion isn't even required. It's being there and knowing how it's done by that particular company that's doing what you want to do, or that particular genre. Like a lot of people are self-taught, man. They just are. So you don't have to necessarily go to college. And sometimes you're into something that you don't even realize is a trade. And it's not even really that it's something that needs college. So there's so many options. I feel like it was just so drilled into our parents' generation of the people that they were seeing that were successful were people that went straight to college and got degrees. And so they were like, hey, go to college and get a degree so you can be successful like these people.
May she grow up and may she become a part of the burgeoning space economy. That is her destiny. That is the big growth sector that she will get to take advantage of, man. Maybe perhaps some space law, or maybe space administration. lots of important work that will need very intelligent, well-to-do people who are interested in making some good fucking money, because there's precious metal in those asteroids, man. You're going to mine that shit. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of jobs that don't exist now that will exist then. And all you can do is provide support where needed, right? And my goal is just to land the point of not just be happy, but maybe that like get to a point where you're comfortable. And if you're comfortable stopping at this position where you're at and you want to ride that for a little while, that's fine. Whereas there are other people who would be like, well, why are you being such a slacker? Why aren't you just fulfilling your potential? I wish you had more drive to achieve more.
Yeah.
And that's
it's just complaining at the clouds, old man.
Yeah, absolutely. And
man, I'm enjoying my sunny day. Yeah. What the hell?
There's people who have absolutely said that about me. I'm just kind of like, I'm doing great.
They say it about all of them, and the world keeps on spinning. Yep. No, man, I'm looking forward to a new year of new podcasts and new fun space bullshit. Yeah. And hopefully some fun new TV. This past year of TV, really, all I really liked was Andor.
Mm.
And you know what? Look, I thought Top Gun Maverick was a fine film. It was an excellent movie. Very much little else for me to really crow about this year. Everything was very middling and disappointing. And I'm hoping for better TV this year. The Peripheral was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm I'll go watch that Oppenheimer movie because yeah, man, I still like me some Christopher Nolan, but I'm not going to go see it in the theater.
Yeah.
I'll full disclosure, I'm going to rip that thing illegally and just watch it at home because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But dude, I have no interest to go back to the theater at these prices. They want me to go back to the theater. Give me back my $6 ticket price, and I'll go back to the fucking theater.
Yeah.
It's real simple. And I'll tell you this, man. I got the new job, and the new job affords me opportunities to utilize the meal expenses. And so I've been hitting up restaurants more often, and man, it's been real nice to get some real fucking barbecue, the real shit, like kind of out in the sticks, Missouri, smokehouse barbecue.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. That's been nice. That's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always nice to be able to get out and like taste something that like has been properly done and it isn't just like a fast food thing or a copy of something else. It's like, oh no, I want to go get some authentic shit, authentic.
Fast food is such dog shit now, dude.
And it's almost as expensive. It's almost as expensive.
What the fuck is a Big Mac anymore? There's no meat on there at all. It's a bread sandwich with a bunch of, frozen lettuce. It's the sauce. That's it. That's the only thing that tastes like a Big Mac anymore.
Yeah.
If you want like a much better sandwich, just get the double quarter pounder and just put Thousand Island on it. And it's much better than whatever they're calling a Big Mac now. It's insulting. You can't get a proper cheeseburger.
More with less.
That's not possible.
You
want a proper cheeseburger? Make it yourself, god damn it.
Make it yourself. I mean, my favorite burger right now in town comes from a food truck.
Yeah,
right? It comes from a food truck here that's around town, and it just pops up at different places. And I'm just like, I just pull up their Instagram. I'm like, okay, they're going to be here. We're going there today because I want a hamburger. Or if I don't want to make it myself, like I've got a flat top grill now, I'll make it myself. But if I want someone else to make it for me and I want to just chill out in a cool environment, if they're pulled up somewhere that's kind of, kicked back and relaxed, I'm gonna go do that, man.
With beef prices, what they are, I simply, unless somebody else is paying for it, I'm not getting a steak at a restaurant anymore. If I'm gonna eat steak, I'm cooking it myself.
Yeah.
So it was New Year's very recently. For the I had come into possession of 2 ribeyes. I hadn't cooked a steak at home in a while. Really babied them. They came out great, but Jesus Christ, 2 of those things was $40.
Yeah, dude.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I savored every last penny. They were delicious. They came out great. And I'm pleased that I made them at home just because I was satisfied because I can actually cook those things. I can't trust anybody to cook in a restaurant anymore. I mean, service is just kind of up in the air at all times, but I mean, especially like back of house, I just don't trust anybody anymore.
Yeah. I mean, unless you go somewhere where you pay for it and that's their specialty, right? And you really pay for it, right? Those places are few and far between, though. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you mean.
Yeah. And again, part of it is that, I mean, and I'm really kind of aware of it. I'm shocked just how little I've been going out to eat in the last 20 months. I really, really, really cut back huge compared to the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm only just now kind of getting back into it. And even that's kind of hard because just, again, I'm not opposed to tipping. I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong not to tip people. I really do. But I also, don't get me wrong, I don't play this little game. Look, not everybody is worthy of tipping.
Yeah.
Okay? I can't I can't tip everybody. Like, I really can't. This is not Las Vegas. And, you know, I can't tip, like, I can't tip plus the tax plus whatever other extra fee is added on the app. And, like, why the fuck am I, like, factoring that shit in with your tip? Oh. It's just so much easier to just be like, man, fuck it, I'll just make it at home.
Oh, it's always easier. It's always easier. What you're going for at the other side is the convenience, right? Like, so you got to weigh one against the other.
People are going to pick out my food at the grocery store. I don't have to tip them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But no, you're right. The convenience, cost of convenience.
That's the big. That becomes the product, right? Your convenience is the product. Your time is the product. It's not so much even about what you're getting, right? It is and it isn't, right? But the time it takes, like, do you want to spend, how long did it take you to cook those ribeyes? To prep them, to cook them, to clean up the mess.
I mean, to do it. I mean, like, obviously it's like, it's not hard to cook a piece of meat, but yeah, to get it, like, everything all set up right. Let's say a good hour total. Mm-hmm. Again, in terms of, like, properly seasoning them, making it room temperature and all that stuff. Because me, when I get me a nice piece of meat, I'm gonna baby that shit. And yeah, I most certainly did, and it was great. It was worth it, and it's the end point of all this AI and robotics nonsense is, again, so that we can have replicant slave servants. A new life awaits you in the off-world colonies. A chance to begin again in a golden land of opportunity and adventure. You will receive your patented replicant servant who will cook for you. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be weird. The first batch of robots are gonna be they're gonna be these little dog-like creatures that they can fly like drones. That's gonna be weird when we have to kind of get used to the drone deliveries.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be really fucked up at first.
Yeah. We'll adapt, right? We got to. No choice.
You're gonna have delinquent teenagers. They're gonna shoot them down.
Oh yeah, there's going to be all kinds of problems. I mean, it's just they'll be the new porch thieves, right? The people who follow the Amazon truck and pluck some packages off the porch. So, which,
a 21st century version of Oliver Twist and the Artful Dodger, if I've ever heard one. Man, no, I'm fully expecting the 2020s to be an awful ride. It's going to be ugly. And, that's fine because it's all part of the trudge to a much brighter 2030s, I hope.
I choose to believe it's going to be, beautiful. I'm just going to choose to believe it's beautiful, and it can surprise me with being bad because I've had, like,
you can say that because you just had a baby girl. Good for you.
Yeah, but I just because the first few years have been a shit show, I think everyone's conditioned and ready for shit, right? Ready for a shit time, and
it's got to get darker before it goes pitch black.
Yeah, it's got to get darker before it goes pitch black. But I mean, I don't know. I cannot. So much of what is on the internet feeds into that negative space, and I'm just kind of like, there's got to be some good shit to focus on. So,
oh man, you know what you got to do is you need to get you a piece of off-grid land and build a cabin, because that's what the algorithm on YouTube is telling me. I think.
Yeah.
I think that the solution to all my problems is to go find a small wooded area and build what is ostensibly a shack, which, but I can still kind of get there and like escape for weekends at a time and completely detach.
Yeah.
I think that calls to me. Or at the very least, there's like, a handful of people making that kind of content on YouTube that's just really, really relaxing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. As long as I got that vicarious experience of somebody else building a cabin that I don't have to build and buy, that does it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good benefit. But I don't know, man. I'm just like you said, I'm looking forward to more podcasts this year. Just having conversations with people, getting back into that, like conversations with people that are regulars to the podcast, conversations with new people, and watching my kid grow up. Like I'm still gonna do the Twitch stuff, but I'm just gonna I want to focus in other areas too. Like that stuff's fun, but there's
to grow up. You heard it here first, man. I'm saying it, and this is something that they need to fix, and we don't need to fix it for them.
Yeah,
Twitch needs to grow up. Twitch is a goddamn mess, and no. We'll get back to basics. Get back to podcasts.
Get back to podcasts. Just get back to talking with folks, and not like. I enjoy what I do on Twitch. I do, but creatively, it's wheel spinning. Like creatively, it's not. I don't have the time to put into it what it would take to grow, and I'm not necessarily sure that I'm interested in growing in just doing that, like throwing on a game and talking with chat. Like I kind of like what it is, because knowing people that have been my size and then they grew and they've got a lot more going on, the new headaches that come with that. Yeah, now you got people hanging out, and now you got a little more money rolling in, but in order to keep that, there's a new level of stress, right? Got to keep doing things, got to be there, right? Can't take time off. Got to change things up, or I get stale and people go away. Like it's a ever evolving thing that you have to put up with.
Well, and I find also it's like at a certain point, the ever elusive problem that I have was the really big ideas. To do it all myself just becomes impossible.
Yeah, it's tough.
You have to have an extra pair of hands that is really reliable and just as involved in it as you are, and you have to rely upon their passion when, I mean, again, you can't guarantee any reward for you or them or anything.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty good beer money though, right?
It is. It affords me to pay for upgrades, in the studio and stuff like that. So it's it is definitely something that I do enjoy, but it's just it's just not what scratches the itch. And honestly, over the past year or two, I've been slowly scaling back the complexity of it all. Like, it used to be like, oh, let's have a crazy scene change here. Let's have 2 different angles on this thing. Let's have this bit that's involved. And then you look and you see that it's not creating enough of a change for there to be something to grow on there. Right. So I'm just kind of like, well, why don't we just stick with the one camera angle? And why don't we just focus more so on the conversation piece of it all? Because let's face it, you got people who are wildly successful with a shit ton of angles and bits and things that they do. And you have people who are just as wildly successful, and they're still on a headset mic and a shitty webcam, and they're playing the same game they were playing 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, and you also, I mean, there's just, again, just in the simple sense of you have plenty of people that are doing just fine. because they have a massive audience, because at the end of the day, it works without any visuals and it works just in the background listening to it.
Yep.
And so it's been something that has worked for well over a century now.
Yeah. That's radio, that's TV, that's any form of entertainment, right? Like you just have to have what you have to have the thing that speaks to the folks that are consuming it. And I don't know. I just want to get back to doing the things that I feel I'm strong at. I know I'm strong at good conversations with people that I know, and good conversations with people that I meet for the first time. So
the audio communal journal.
Yeah. Just continue audio documenting, and where I can, make a video version of that. Like, I'm like right now I'm recording a video, but it's only me, right? It's only me, and I'll get with you on having some sort of placeholder for you and stuff like that. Like, I'm just simplifying it way more. I'm not trying to go like, I've got a foot pedal where I can change camera angles and I can make it like a 2-shot and stuff like that. And it's just, it's all things.
You know who you're talking to when it comes to getting complicated with your streams.
Oh, 100%, man.
Oh my God, man. And don't get me wrong. When it was all cooking and it was, really cool stuff that I could trigger, at a glance, it's like, yeah, it was great, but it just took so long to get it all programmed in.
Yeah.
And then, there's those inevitable, mishaps that everybody just kind of, you realize, you hear enough stories about it that it's like, sure enough, it's a rite of passage. All of your shit just all of a sudden needs to get deleted off your channel.
Yep.
You're not really like a real streamer unless that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just hear about it way too much.
Yeah. And it's just I don't know. At some point, especially when you're talking about what I enjoy out of all this stuff, which is the conversation piece, you got so many things running in the background that now all of a sudden the thing you love about it starts to degrade, right? The conversation starts to degrade because you're too busy making sure, is that angle right? Okay, we're good. Am I using the right scene? Yes, we're good. Is someone chat? Like, there's a reason why I don't really like recording podcasts live, unless it's with multiple people in person, because I'll get too distracted as to what chat's also talking about. Like, I just would rather just be one-to-one with the person I'm talking to.
And again, be easier if you had a producer, be easier if you had regular co-host. But again, that's just more people involved, which, then you have to rely upon their reliability.
Yeah, it's its own set of spinning plates. And, it's not that I'm not interested in something like that. It's just that it's not what I have. So it's not what I have to work with.
Well, but that's also another thing that, like, I'm noticing too, when I think about a lot of acts that were successful, and where they were, how it started and how it's going. Giant Bomb is weirdly unrecognizable. I haven't looked into that stuff in a long time. I kind of fell out of Jeff Gerstmann generally, but he's still there, and it's still something I can kind of tune into regularly. But a whole bunch of old setups of shows and whatnot, especially like, YouTube's. I've noticed that there are some people that just kind of decided they didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, what was originally duos are now just like somebody broke off and like kept doing it, and then the other person just like, they'll drop it from time to time, but they don't really do it much at all because, again, their life changed. Maybe they had kids. Maybe they had something else going on, like new business opportunities just like radically changed their schedule to just made it not possible.
Yeah.
So
things change, man. Things change.
Oh yeah, right.
Well, I know we're going to chat a little after, but I want to thank you for being on.
Yeah.
Talked about some great shit. It's been
a while, so we had some time to save up some stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah, to marinate a little bit. So if you would, why don't you let us know what you're watching, or what to let people know? I know you mentioned Andor earlier. I didn't know if you had anything else to kind of suggest.
Well, I guess you're supposed to go see Avatar: The Way of Water, because if you don't, James Cameron's going to pop out from under your bed and murder you.
Yeah, he's going to show up with a big crab robot thing.
Yeah.
Destroy your house and then go
God,
slink off into the ocean.
Awesome. He looks so awesome. I don't know. I would say keep an eye out for Hitman Freelancer mode, because that's coming out soon. Yeah, man. Here's to a new year. Here's to 2023. Is it a cyberpunk dystopia yet? That feels like the right year for a cyberpunk dystopia. 2023
would be great, right?
In Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's the kind of the cyberpunk utopia is the kind of thing right now that people would pay to be a part of, like a Star Wars experience in Florida, in Orlando, in the swamp.
Teen kids are using ChatGPT and Atari laptops to break into ATMs and steal money.
Oh my goodness! Well, thanks for being here. My suggestion, I just did an episode on it with the wife. Is This Place Rules documentary on HBO Max.
Yeah, that's a good one.
While you see what it could like on from the outside, what it could be about, there's a much deeper message that's going on with Andrew Callahan in that one, and I think that this is gonna be a nice launching point for his next evolution past YouTube. It's gonna be interesting to see where Andrew Callahan lands after this. I can only imagine it's going to be really, really good, because he's coming at things with a very different perspective than what you're seeing from most media right now. So definitely check out This Place Rules, and also check out his channel 5 on YouTube, because it's a lot of fun content there. As for me, I'm around on Twitch, usually on Sundays and Wednesdays. Come by, say hi, hang out if you want to. We're usually just shooting the shit mostly, and playing some video games sometimes. And Fagan, do you have anything you want to plug, or are you just chilling?
No. I'm retired. I'm retired from them calls to action. Leave me alone.
No calls to action.
Get off my Twitter.
You guys have a wonderful night. We will see you on the next episode, whomever and whenever that is. Much love. Thank you, Fagan.
.com.